The merchant prince families ruling over Port Deepwater are as fickle as they are ruthless, a fact that Corhain the Wizard has encountered and experienced to his own detriment. Deeply in debt to one of the families to finance his studies, the up-and-coming spellcaster finds himself press-ganged into a assassination scheme in retaliation for a bard's loose tongue, as two of those esteemed local families quarrel, and the only way they think to settle this is by spilling blood, without directly getting their hands dirty. So putting the squeeze on Corhain the Wizard and sending him off on this foolish errand to retaliate against the offending bard, the wizard finds himself accessing a hidden network of subterranean tunnels that can only be traversed by using the magical energies that the wizard is able to control, but few others can. What a stroke of luck, then, that in his spelunking endeavors, he runs into an orc and what can only charitably be described as a bipedal, decaying boar. The question, of course, being, lucky for whom? Hello friends, Anderson here. Welcome back to A Lonely Knave, episode 9, where we rejoin Torga, Arcee, and now Corhain at a bit of an impasse. They are still at the entrance into this tunnel system that Corhain has access to, and that Torga and Arcee very much would like access to. But as the conversation unfolds, they discover that the target that Torga and Arcee would like to reach, and that, of course, Corhain infers they are up to no good at, is the, well, employer of Corhain, the blackmailer that is setting Corhain up to attack another merchant house. So who are these houses anyway? Let's get ourselves two names, because two houses there are, and that never ends well. So let's figure out who these merchant houses are so we have an easier time allocating the two families. This might well be a job for Xanatars again. I'm looking for something that makes sense as sort of a corrupt merchant family name. I think Tiefling male name, they sound somewhat promising. They could work as last names as well. So I'm just going to take two of those. Let's go for the first one. This is the one that is the target for Arcee and the employer, even if it's against his will, of Corhain. 49, House Marbas. And they are up against House Damakos. Sounds pretty serviceable to me as far as family names go for this type of organization. I would like to award Torga 100 experience points for the endeavors of the last session, the various smaller skill checks and such, bringing us up to 635. So now a bit closer to level 2. But now we still have to deal with the wizard, who has maybe a look of concerned horror on his face as Torga and Arcee ask him whether you wouldn't happen to know the way to House Marbas now, would you? Marbas? I'd stay away if I were you. They're not to be trifled with. What designs have you for House Marbas? Thinking of how would Torga handle this. She's rude, but there is not really much of a hook for being rude at the moment, and she also probably doesn't feel like immediately sharing the mission statement. On the other hand, she's kind of asking, hey, can you get us to the kind of subterranean level close to House Marbas? So that is suspicious. So you know them. What dealings have you had with House Marbas? Well, Corhain is open to a charisma check here because in a weird way he wants to talk about them pulling his strings, but he also, of course, is quite terrified. So he, I guess, wants the impression that he's given no other choice somehow by Torga either being very intimidating or backing him into a corner rhetorically. So let's roll a regular charisma check for Torga. No advantage, no disadvantage, just to see how she does here. Well enough against a DC of 15, so that would be convincing, and maybe convincing enough to at least give a somewhat straight answer. Dealings, well, certainly very one-sided. I borrowed money from them to further my studies, and as you can imagine, they're not the most forgiving creditors, so I am rather beholden to their whims and wanton needs. And I guess that's where Torga, being rude, kind of eyes him up and down and says, well, to each their own, I presume, but you're the most lanky, pockmarked version of a bed warmer I've ever seen. What? No, not those kinds of needs, no. Well, that's probably another charisma check now that we've come so far. Yeah, still moving it along, so his shoulders slump and he stammers, there's this Bard for House Damocus. He insulted. They want me to kill him. And that's where RC sort of grunts and says,
sounds to me like you have more reason to quarrel with House Marmus than with that bard of yours.
Sounds like we have a common enemy. And I'm not sure that Corhane can see it that way, because he's probably more terrified to act against House Marbus than he is to actually execute the assassination. But on the other hand, he now has these two knaves standing in front of him. So what does that do to him? Is he willing to consider House Marbus an enemy and acting against them, however, whatever shape that might take? Yes or no? 12? Yes, but. I mean, yeah, for sure he is, but he cannot devise a way to do that, and probably says as much. Even if I were to think of him as my enemy, what would I do? How would I... You don't understand, you're not from here. And maybe that's the offer then. We're not. Think of that as an advantage. You get us to the house, you leave that bard well enough alone, and we'll take care of whoever it is that you're indebted to, while you make sure that you put in a very public appearance within the next 2 or 3 hours.
And then you'd have what in your educated circles would be considered an alibi.
Is this convincing enough for the wizard? I wonder. This really predicates on both the word being kept, but on the other hand, Torga is an orc, so if she's willing to give a word, that might mean something. But also on their ability to execute this, and we assume that while they may be able to surprise burst into an underground vault, yoink a statue and run off again, would they really have the resources to then head on up into the palace proper, find a target there and basically remove it from existence, thereby also then hoping that the arrangement with the bard comes to a halt, because then either the war between the families escalates or it is considered, oh, now we've gone too far, now it has to stop. So I think he would think that he's in the clear if this blackmailer dies specifically. And maybe it's not the head of the family, maybe it's more something akin to our foppish noble, the young son braggart who is very easy to target, and that's what the bard has made fun of. So maybe a more accessible target that they can get a hold of, but then they have to still deal with all kinds of household guard and turn this into more of an assassination attempt. I don't know. I don't think this is likely that he rates their chance of success very high, but I don't think it's impossible. So if this had been, let's say, to my mind, the head of the family, I feel like he would have outright said, like, there's no way you can do this. But since this is more like the third or fourth son or whatever, maybe he thinks, yeah, they could do it, but does he really buy into it? So disadvantage roll on the question, does Corhane think Torga and Arcee can pull this off? Yeah, I mean, Torga made a pretty convincing case, and his eyes start to sort of glaze over, and he has an idea that he has in the darkest hours of night entertained. He's just not bold enough. He has already made a plan himself how he would do it if he dared do it, which he doesn't. But now he's sharing this with Torga and Arcee. Except, what the hell is this plan? This sounds like a action subject how. So let's approach it as such and see what the oracles tell us. 12, 7, and 1. Agree magic boldly. Agree magic boldly. So he has come up with a spell to accomplish this, but then Torga and Arcee would have to agree to be the subjects of the spell boldly because it's dangerous. And what's that spell? Do we have a likely... These 100 levelless spells are pretty random and all over the place, but maybe we get lucky or we can extrapolate something. So what kind of a spell is this? That's 93 true sight. You see through all nearby illusions. Okay. So maybe through one of his tutors, Corhei knows that this merchant house has secured its palace as kind of a smoke and mirrors illusions cabinet, and that it is damn near impenetrable unless you have the true sight. And maybe the problem is that unless you are really good at controlling this magic, let's say if Corhei now bestows the true sight on Arcee and on Torga, that doesn't just limit itself to seeing through the illusions in this merchant palace, but you kind of see through all kinds of illusions, and you see all kinds of stuff that might negatively affect your mental well-being and your overall health. So I guess the bold part is that he will outline this and he will explain to Torga and Arcee, House Marbas is fond of its magical trickery, and I know of a way to overcome, but it is not without its risks. You can't go mad. What else is new? And I think Arcee has some idea of what this smoke and mirrors reference and this like madness, and he gets what Corhain's talking about.
I have heard of such magics. What you propose is risky, wizard. But I have a bone to pick with that family. And if you can show the way, I will gladly do whatever it takes to get you out of your predicament with them.
Some days feels like I've already gone mad. What difference is it going to make? Go ahead now. Weave your little magic. Torga is generally most unwise, so I think she doesn't have many reservations here. And I don't think that Corhei needs any extra invitation, so he starts painting a few symbols in the air and then sort of putting some paste that he produces from his pockets over the eyelids of Arcee and Torga, and in the process also discovering that Arcee's eye socket, one of them, is empty, and kind of recoiling from that. It's like, what the... Ugh. And I guess now they have the true sight, which means they can deal with these copious amounts of illusions and non-existent walls that are erected in this palace of House Marbas if they make their way up from the ground level. So now what it takes is for Corhain to guide them through to the merchant quarter and close to the House of Marbas through this network of tunnels that I'm assuming is sort of a relic of an old wizard cabal, and that incidentally just has entry and exit points in those city areas. So this is where we assume we can consider our journey at an end. However, they're not the only ones that have access to these tunnels, so is there some kind of encounter in these tunnels? Yes or no? 8 is a no. Okay, so they make it there relatively unharmed, and presumably Corhain bids them farewell and entreats them one more time to keep their word and stick to their promise, which Torga confirms. And now go to whatever tavern or whorehouse you find nearby, and be sure to make a scene.
Maybe even get yourself arrested while you're at it. That'll be rather difficult to contest.
And with a promise of doing his very best to be a memorable nuisance, he wizards his way away and goes back into the tunnels to a different exit to make it to the surface, while Torga and RC are now looking at a very different set of tunnels and walls and subterranean catacombs and connecting pathways, which I think is sort of a network that the merchant families kind of can agree on maintaining, which is their escape tunnels from their estate in case the city ever turns against them or something. So they all have kind of a shared escape route that they can access, which is also connected to an access point of this old network of, for lack of a better term, wizard tunnels. So they're close. The question is now, how are they going to get in? Does RC have any plan for this? Is he prepared? Does he have any powers, for instance? Because he is a spellcaster. Damn it, he's also a mind reader. I keep forgetting about that part. Does that have any bearing on the... No, let's just assume that wizard minds are notoriously hard to read. Like he had, and probably also shielded in some way. That's one of the techniques that they learned early on in their careers. Retcon successful. I'll have to keep that in mind though. But spellcasting, so does he have a plan for this? Yes or no? I don't think it's, I don't want to give it too much bias, because it would be fun if he doesn't have a plan for this as well. It could be a pretty fun interaction. So let's see. 11. That's a shakeup. He has a plan, but he doesn't need one for some reason, or the question gets invalidated. Let me read this one more time somewhat thoroughly. A shakeup is a plot twist, pivots on a question. Opportunity to introduce a new NPC, bring back an old one, increase the stakes in a story, or force a change of plan. Shakeup should make the question you asked out of date. Are there guards? You look around the corner and your ex-wife is there with 2 bailiffs. Okay. Huh. Oh, is this maybe a consequence of them being at war with the other house at the moment? And naturally the easy access point would then also be through these escape tunnels. So is this all of a sudden brimming with people from House Damacus who are also looking to sabotage House Marbus in some way? I think that might be what happens. So RC and Torga follow a short walk through the main causeway as they pass another subterranean part of another noble or merchant prince estate, and then crossing over, rounding a corner at a T-junction, suddenly see sort of flickering torchlight coming from the tunnel to the left of them, some shadows dancing on the wall and some hushed voices conferring. I think they're gonna sneak closer, so let us do a sneaky bit. 19, that is strangely successful. So the two of them managed to get close to the corner and peek around to see what's going on there. And what's going on there is that there is a bunch of thugs with... what are they up to? I was initially thinking they're piling up like little barrels of black powder to blow through the wall and then do kind of a midnight raid on the other house. Yeah, I think the shakeup here is that it makes the one part of the mission easier, but the other part of the mission a lot more difficult, because what is happening now is that the thugs down here are looking to blow a hole in the vault wall and then disappear to draw the attention of House Marbus to the cellar vault, while in reality a second team is coming in through another entrance point looking to abduct the noble who's been causing this altercation, basically the butt of the joke, but now who's the driving force behind the conflict of the two families, and they're looking to force the situation in kind of a different trajectory by abducting one of the key elements. I feel like this is kind of almost like a song and dance where these merchant houses have an accepted toolkit of political maneuvers and escalations, and sort of assassinations is at the very top, but abduction, slander, all of this follows like a set of rules, and at this point in the conflict it's acceptable for the targeted family that is now the target of the retaliation against this minor slight is escalating it to the level of abducting the perpetrator. And Torga and Arcee are aware now of the diversion, so they have this huddled group of maybe a dozen thugs in the employ of House Damacus piling up like little barrels with a thread of fuses, and are they coming towards where the two of them are hiding, or are they going the other direction? Coming towards? No. Okay, so they're like running this fuse down the passageway, and before Torga and Arcee can even confer on what to do next, there's already a flame shooting up this twisted up string that within seconds creates a deafening explosion, a deafening roar that blasts through these tunnels, and I guess Torga and Arcee can roll their constitution saves to withstand both the sound and the impact. I think we determined that Arcee's constitution, due to the decay, is a bit lower, so Torga first is fine. Arcee is really fine. Okay, wow. These 20s are also a bit spooky. So, the dust settles. The wall is blown open in a way that Arcee couldn't even have dreamt of doing, but Arcee would have probably preferred to do this a bit more quietly. Now it's a matter of, oh crap, we need to move now, as the footsteps of the thugs from House Damacus are already receding, and Torga and Arcee make a move to get into this new jagged hole, smoking, now opening into this underground vault area. And I think this is maybe where Arcee could be an advantage. Does Arcee have some kind of a connection to this relic? Does he know roughly where it's located? Because I'm assuming this vault is also quite big, but I could imagine that Arcee relies on some kind of a supernatural connection to find this thing. So does he have a supernatural connection to the relic he's trying to locate? That's a 17. That is a yes without any ands or buts. So Arcee just turns to Torga.
We're close. I can feel it.
And rushes off, leaving Torga no choice but to follow, battle axe in hand. And they enter into a destroyed, like low-ceilinged vault of formerly piled up fineries, like bales of cloth and some bars of silver, now all charred and blown all over the place. The metal grade prison cell wall kind of separator that keeps the individual like round ceiling compartments that store all this good stuff separated one from the other is blown apart as well, and that allows for Torga and Arcee to enter into this underground, so U-shaped walkway, passageway that is the main access of this vault, where at each end I think there's like a staircase access, so they have to get a move on now because the guards are on the way. I wonder how many attempts we should give them to find this thing, how many rolls we allow them before the guards make it down there. Maybe like half a die 6. Ooh, lucky. Okay. They have at least a little bit of time to do something, and I guess that now Arcee leads the way, and he's sort of gesticulating and divining, rodding his way forward and navigating all the offshoots that go into various directions from this U-shaped main corridor as they take a turn and then Well, presumably this is locked behind something somewhere. Yes, this is like very, very likely. So 2 dice. Yeah, it is. So I am kind of catching the vibe from this, though, that they're keeping this sort of treating this a bit differently from this whole more resource, pile it up and put it in like a little vault kind of thing. So I'm picturing this more being behind like a door, actually in a room with maybe some other cultural objects sort of piled up to look at for whoever comes down here to bask in the fruits of their evil labors. So we're confronted with a door, a sturdy one that is probably very difficult to overcome. We have rather a sturdy battle axe here though, so plus we have a spellcaster with us. Can Torga hack through this door? Is this even theoretically possible? No. So she'll waste 1 roll out of those 3 to find out that this in fact is not gonna work. Let's just roll, because if I do actually end up rolling a 1, I'm also gonna dock 1 quality from her weapon. I roll a 2, so close. The axe sort of doesn't even make a dent, and as Torga examines the axe head, she's like, oh, this does more damage to my axe than this does to the door, so I'd better give up on this course of action. Now, does RC have a spell that might work? 7, also no. But he's gonna try, so we're wasting another roll. RC kind of trying to set this door ablaze or trying to like telekinetically blow it out of the hinges to no avail, which leaves, desperate measures maybe? Do we finally have the situation where Torga slips on the gloves, having already felt that buzz of energy the first time that she used them, and maybe she misinterprets these gloves and thinks, you know, she can kind of channel this buzz, this mythical energy into blowing these doors off the hinges, while in reality she's just gonna summon a statue, but maybe she's gonna summon it into the door and it's like turns the door into matchsticks. Could happen. But I feel like Torga is rather worried about this. She is, however, at full health, so it's at least probably not gonna kill her, since she does take damage if she summons this. So let us roll. Yeah, how do we do this? I think this is still, to successfully use this the first time, I still think kind of a skill check of intelligence is in order for her. Otherwise it's a bit too lame. Like, she does need to figure this out still. So she's, because right now she thinks this is a kind of the gloves of Hulk Smash, or, you know, channel energy into somewhere. She doesn't realize that there's actually something going to appear once she raises the gloves up. So intelligence roll, but since she's already played with them before, nah, no advantage. Don't want to make it too easy. Let's just see how this goes. That's a 1. Okay, so we're summoning the statue of Brimgor, the keeper of the red flame, either not at all and just suffer the backlash, or we summon it but horrible things happen because it's like uncontrolled or something. But first, the backlash. I think we had D8 damage, so let's see how much damage this does to Torga. 8. Heavy boots on the nearby stairs indicate that the time that RC and Torga have to make it through this door and back out of this system of tunnels is coming to a close, and that it's now or never. So Torga strips on these mythical gloves that they found in this subterranean abandoned cellar, and she knows that there is mythical energy there, and she draws upon her life essence unknowingly, and she, knowing what's at stake, she really gives it her all, which means she channels pretty much the entirety of her being into this act of summoning that she only at the very last second realizes is an act of summoning. And as her vision fades and the floor comes up to meet her as she's about to collapse. She hears this horrific, demonic laughter in the back of her mind. And as her own consciousness fades and her body escapes her control, she feels something else rising up inside of her, and the laughter gets louder and louder. And that's where we're gonna pick it up next time. So thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you then, and bye for now.